Hey everyone, I'm that guy in Hutch, Jason Probst, and you're listening to That Podcast in Hutch. This week's episode will be a little bit abbreviated, but I wanted to take a moment or two to just talk about and reflect on the past year. You know, the first episode of That Podcast in Hutch aired a little over a year ago on September 2nd, 2021. And here a year later, we've cranked out almost 50 episodes, and we've covered a variety of topics from truck drivers to chefs, former drug addicts, single moms, experts who've provided insert and answered some of our big questions that we have around here. And it really has grown into, more than I thought it would ever be. And I didn't know when we started how long it would last. In the initial podcast, I talked about how this was kind of the result of a conversation among friends, and how initially I was kind of reluctant to step into this new form of media. I cut my teeth on writing. It's my comfort zone. It's where I have time to think, consider, edit. I can do all those things until I have something that's pretty close to exactly what I want. And frankly, I've never liked the sound of my recorded voice, and I've never felt all that comfortable in front of a microphone, certainly not as comfortable as I feel in front of a keyboard. But over time, people have told me that they actually think I have an okay radio voice, and they've been very encouraging. But as I said a year ago when I decided to do this, and it took a little bit of cajoling and encouragement from my friends, but as I said a year ago, what's life about if it's not about latching on to new adventures and going for a ride? I also thought that our community lacked effective storytelling. And I think that's more true now than it was then. There have been additional cuts and layoffs at our local newspaper, and I've just felt for some time that we're not doing a great job of telling those stories in our community like we used to. And I wanted to kind of do what I could to fill that gap. So we're a year into this, and I have to say it's been a lot of fun. More fun than I expected, although it has been challenging at times. It's not easy to do a weekly show. It's not easy to fit that in with all the other things that life brings and that you have to do. It hasn't really made any money to speak of, but I don't do a whole lot in my life for money, and much to the chagrin of my family. Most of what I do is because I see value in it, I believe in it, or I think it's fun. And with That Podcast in Hutch, I get all of those things in one place. As we move into a second year, I hope that we can produce even more and better content. I've been working with some people here locally to sort of beef up our outreach and to find better ways and more effective ways to get the word out to more people. You can help with this by subscribing, sharing, liking, telling your friends about our podcast and sharing the links to the episodes with them. If we ever listen to something that really strikes you or is a compelling story, if you just make sure that the people around you know about that, that does a lot to help spread the word about what we're doing, and it helps build regular listeners. Everybody who puts time and effort into this project would really appreciate that and your continued support and anything you can do to help us build our audience. Being a local podcast, there's probably not much chance that we'll capture millions of listeners or end up with national sponsorships. But with enough support and encouragement, we can continue to tell the stories of people from our community and from our state. We can keep asking questions, fun questions, big questions. We can explore ideas, and we can understand more about the experiences of others. When I think back on some of the past year's episodes, I find myself very thankful for so many people who've been willing to sit down with me and share their stories. Ones like my friend Tim, who told me about the realities of his time as a long-haul truck driver. That came at a time when all the headlines were talking about trucker shortages and people writing stories about what's causing the truck shortage. And Tim provided me with the sort of insight that can only be found by someone who's actually spent time inside of a cab. And I think his experience illustrated for me, and hopefully for you, that there's a lot more to that job than maybe we considered. And there's a lot of regulatory burdens and a lot of things that fall on the truck drivers that make it hard for people to continue doing that job. Another one is Jackie Espinoza, who shared her deeply personal journey moving from active addiction into active recovery. And through her story, I learned to appreciate and understand some challenges that I'll likely never experience myself. And through that, I get to learn more about myself and I get to learn more about the world around me. I was also able to highlight some important policy discussions, particularly around fentanyl and the growing danger it poses to our communities. Thanks to some of the unique insights of former U.S. Attorney Stephen McAllister and Deputy Coroner Sharon Mandel, I was able to learn and share with listeners what professionals see on the other side of this issue. You know, Sharon sees people at the tragic worst outcome of addiction, and Stephen, he saw people on the prosecution side of this, and he saw what was happening, and it sort of changed his view of things. And through that, we were able to share those stories from a different perspective. I also remember the time I sat down with Representative Jim Gardner and was able to learn all about the dangers that are faced by the ornate box turtle, which is the Kansas reptile. I had no idea at the time that there was a black market for turtles, and my guess is that you didn't either. Yet because I happen to own a couple of microphones and Jim was willing to sit down and visit with me, we all learned something that we might not have otherwise known. You know, throughout the past year, there have been so many people that have shared their stories with us, and I hope that if you've not listened to all the episodes, that you'll take some time and go back through those previous episodes and listen to them. And I'll share the links on the post, and we'll push some of this material out so that you have access to those. But those episodes are timeless. I mean, when I talk to Heidi Unruh about her daughter's struggle with long COVID, those stories don't go away. They stay relevant for a long, long time, and I hope that you'll take the time to go back and listen to them, because there's a lot of good stuff in there, and I feel indebted to those people who've been willing to share their time and knowledge and experience with me. I also hope as we move into the second year of this that you'll stick with this, that you'll keep listening and you'll keep telling others about what we're trying to do with that podcast in Hutch. And as long as you're willing to do that, we're willing to keep the show going. I really appreciate everyone who's listened to this last year. I look forward to doing this for another year, and we've had a lot of fun, and we're looking for another year of fun. So thank you.
A Salt City Sound production.